Hello everyone, back tuning in to the 7th Summer 2019 Analogues update from GazWeathers.com. So I had a little bit of a layoff with the summer updates last week for Solar Sunday, but we are now back with our summer analogues, and the summer 2019 analogues will now carry on through to the end of May, when we will release the summer 2019 forecast. So what we're going to be doing for this video is thinking a little bit outside the box. We've had a suggestion from our good friend Richard Traut. I'm going to show you Richard's presentation in a moment. So the first half of the video is very much the work of Richard Traut, our good friend Richard. So that's what we're doing in the first half of the video. The second half of the video, we're going to be doing some pattern matching. We're going to be trying to match up the pattern that we had during March, and see if we can find some years that had a similar pattern, see what the summers were like in those years. So it's a little bit of a different analogues update for this 7th update. Just to say that it's going to be quite a long video, as always, with the summer updates, so if you can't watch the video, won't go, don't worry, you will be able to come back to the website whenever you want and watch the video on demand, and also read the written post when this video gets put onto the summer updates page, which is going to be this evening. Got GazWeathers Sunday Roundup coming up later on today as well, so it's a busy old day at the website. Hope you're enjoying all of the content. Right, so big thank you to Richard, as I say, for coming up with the latest outside of the box thinking, and also big thank you to our analogues guru, James Ackrill. James got all of the analogues together for us, both the analogues suggested by Richard, and also the analogues that we're going to see in the second half of the video. With the March pattern matches. I've been a bit of a nuisance this week to James, I think. So big thank you to James for getting all of the analogues together for us once again. I really couldn't do these videos and these updates without James's input. So a big thank you to James for doing that. Alright, so let's get on with the 7th Summer 2019 Analogues update, and what we're going to do to start off with is have a look at Richard's outside of the box special presentation. So I've got a whole page full of notes based on Richard's presentation, but I'm going to tell you. But I got to thinking that I was just writing away, and I really got to thinking that I can't explain this any better than Richard himself. So you're going to see, and I'm going to read for you right now, Richard's presentation for his out-of-the-box special, looking at odds in more ways than one. This is all part of the GazWeathers 2019 summer updates, of course. So, Richard is saying, this is something I have been looking to do for a while. The out-of-the-box scenarios are not accurate assessments of the weather, but are something for you all to enjoy. You will only find them for summer and winter forecast, though. So, without further ado, let's get on with what this one is about. So this year, 2019, is in the odd year category. I have looked at solar cycles on average following the 11.5 year cycle approximate average. Also, I have looked into approximately where solar minimum was in these years and what phase of the QBO we were in following on from the QBO special that we did in update number 3. Finally, I have added the equation by removing even years to leave odd years, and all these years are from 1900 only, as not to delve too too far back. I hope you find it interesting. Sounds interesting enough so far, Rich. So we go on. So the solar cycles from 1900 that I'm interested in are cycles 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. We are in cycle 24, so that speaks for itself, with an average of 11 years 7 months to 12 years maximum of these cycles. So starting with an 11-year cycle, 1911 is my first year, followed by 1923, 1935, 1947, 1959, 1971, 1983, 1995, and 2007. As you can see, there is an approximate gap of 12 years between these years, or 11 years, 7 months approximate solar cycle average rounded up to 12 years, if you see what I mean. All of the years end in an odd number, and if we continue with the sequence, the next would be 2019, hence this out-of-the-box special. So is summer coming? We shall find out very, very shortly. QBO-wise, the real accurate data starts with year 1959 onwards, but I can look back at the years with some confidence at those summers. Starting with 1911, which was a west going east QBO. 1923 was an east going west QBO. 1935 was westerly. 1947 was westerly. 1959 was easterly. 1971 was westerly. 1983 was westerly. 1995 was westerly. And finally, 2007 was an easterly QBO. So overall, not too far off this year's summer to come. Going on, next I'm looking at solar minimum with an approximate 1 year for each. Next I'm looking at solar minimum within an approximate 1 year of each summer. 1911 was 2 years away. 1923 was within months of solar minimum. 1935 had just passed solar minimum. 1947 had passed solar minimum as well. 1959 was 5 years away from solar minimum. 1971 was around 4 years from solar minimum. 1983 was 3 years from solar minimum, and 1995 was very close to solar minimum and a match for this year. 2007 was within a year of solar minimum too. Next, I'm looking for odd cycles, hence odd numbers. So into the mix is 1923, 1935, 1955, 1983, and 2007, with the next year leading to 2019. So the top matches based on all of those years are as follows: 1923, 1935, 1983, 1995, and 2007. Interesting then to see that the yearly gaps are 12, 48, 12 and 12, and as this summer is 2019, that would be number 5 on the list as another 12-year gap from 2007. Odd number, hence the title of the exercise, out of the box odd numbers. Those are the summers for reanalysis to look for this particular exercise. And there we go. Thank you for watching my presentation. So Richard has given us the challenge, and now we've got to look at what these summers were like in those specific years. Again, I'll just say it's 1923, it's 1935, 1983, it's 1995, and it's 2007. Let's have a look, shall we? So we're going to start off with the outside the box summer 2019 update. 1923. This is what the summer of 1923 was like. It looks like a pretty grim summer actually, with a trough of below average heights to our east and northeast, and above average heights in the middle of the Atlantic. That leaves us pulling in a chilly northwesterly wind. So overall, quite a mixed summer in 1923. The next outside of the box summer is 1935. This looks like quite an unsettled summer. It actually wasn't too bad, really. It has below average heights to the west of the country, near normal heights to the east. What you can see is it probably is bringing up quite a lot of southerly winds there. So it's a fairly warm summer, actually. There's a succession of warm summers in the early 1930s, 1933, 1934. And 1935 is another pretty decent summer, although the height anomaly would suggest quite an unsettled summer. Actually, it is quite a warm summer in 1935. But we had that long gap that Richard told us about through the presentation from 1935 to 1983. This is how the summer of 1983 is shaping up. It's a very, very good summer indeed, with an area of above average heights centred almost over the top of the UK, but below average heights up to our north. The jet stream gets pushed up to the north too. This is a hot summer in 1983, including a hot July. In fact, for a while, July 1983 was the hottest July and the hottest month on record, only beaten by 2006. And then another really good summer, 12 years on, we've got 1995, which again is a very, very good summer indeed. It's a hot summer, area of high pressure centred almost over top of the UK, and we're bringing in these warm to hot easterly winds. Very dry summer and a hot summer too. It's not quite as hot as 1976, but it is actually a little bit drier than the summer of 1976, which a lot of people forget about 1995. Overall, it's the best summer of my lifetime, as I was born a year after 1976. And then we go on another 12 years to 2007. This one is the joker in the pack, really. This one is a much poorer summer with an area of high pressure up over Greenland, and then we've got low pressure underneath it over the west of Europe, and this leaves us pulling in chilly northerly winds. It's a very, very wet summer in 2007, especially the first half of it. May through to July is extraordinarily wet. August does get a little bit better, but this is one of the worst summers that I've ever lived through, really. Certainly from a rainfall perspective, it's an atrocious summer with copious amounts of rain. So putting all of those together, this is how the Junes combined are coming out from Richard's Outside of the Box update this month. So we're looking at 1923, 1935, 1983, 1995, and 2007. And overall, it's a pretty decent signal for June. It has above average heights on average, centred out to west and to the west of the country. Bear in mind, we have got 2007 within this, so that's a much poorer June. But when you combine it all together, actually it's a really quite a decent signal for June. We're pulling in these warm easterly winds, and it looks pretty settled, pretty dry month as well. July also has an anticyclonic signal, albeit a little bit weakened, but it's still there, almost over the top of the country. Looks more unsettled up to our north and northeast. Low pressure is deepening up there. So I would think July is kind of like 50-50. It could go either way, really. You could have an anticyclonic signal with Richard's Outside of the Box theory for this update. You could have an unsettled July, but overall probably still just about favouring a warmer and drier signal for July. And then the high pressure strengthens again, interestingly, as we go through to August. Look at that. In August, we tend to get this ridge again coming back, similar to where it is in June, but if anything, a little bit stronger over or just ever so slightly to our west. Again, you'd be expecting to bring the winds in rather like that. So, and it could have an easterly influence as well, because there's below average heights across southern Europe. Actually, this looks a very mixed bag for southern parts of Europe. You'd expect quite a lot of heavy rain and thunderstorms around the Med, perhaps there in August. But for us, it's not a bad signal at all from Richard's Outside of the Box. So again, it does look like these analogue years are favouring pretty decent conditions in the summer. And this is how the summers themselves are looking with Richard's Outside of the Box theory. So we have above average heights centred over ever so slightly to the west of the country. Below average heights are pushed up to the north. It's a very, very good signal for the summer, actually, with these outside of the box analogues. That looks like it's favouring very dry summer overall. High pressure is dominant, and you expect quite a lot of warm weather as well. Of course, the hottest summers will have the high pressure either over or to the east of the UK, but certainly it's a warm enough signal. You would expect decent warm weather quite regularly there. And it just looks like a very, very nice summer pattern overall. Bear in mind, I have got 2007 in there, which I say is the joker in the pack. But to be honest, it looks pretty good with Richard's outside of the box analogues. So thank you so much for Richard for his suggestion, and thank you to James for sending the analogues through. We are a collaborative effort, as I always explain, and we love to work together and bounce around ideas. And yeah, big thank you to Richard for that suggestion for the outside of the box analogues for the summer 2019 update. Right, I'm going to pause the video there. We're going to come back and do a little bit of pattern matching in a moment. So I'll see you around 2 seconds time. We can get some drink of water, give the throat a little bit of a drink, and we'll meet back in 2 seconds time when we shall go through some March analogues and also some summer analogues as well. So see you very shortly. Alright, we're back and we're ready to resume our 7th Summer 2019 Analogues update. So the first part of the video, we're just looking at Richard Traut's outside of the box theory, and pretty interesting analogues with those as well, suggesting a chance of a warmer and a drier summer, perhaps some pretty decent looking all years combined charts, particularly for June and for August and for the summers overall themselves. The second part of the video is going to have a look at some March pattern matches. So I've got the 500 millibar height anomaly there for you for March 2019. We're going to go through and see which years we've been able to find that are closest to March 2019. Bear in mind, you will never get a complete like-for-like match. Each month is going to be unique and individual to itself. So we're just looking for the closest matches with this. You're never going to get a 100% like-for-like match. There will always be something that's a little bit different with any given month, comparing it to another. But we're going to do our best. I'm going to go through it right now. So, as I say, this is the 500 millibar height anomaly for March 2019. So you see it's a very zonal month, very westerly month. It has above average heights from the Azores in towards many southern parts of Europe. Below average heights up to the north of the UK. So in between, you're going to get this westerly flow. We know the first half of March was very unsettled. The second half of March settled down quite a bit. So these are the closest matches we've been able to find to March 2019. So first of all, we've got March 1859. Do let me know in the comments, by the way, which March you think is the closest match to March 2019. I'm going to tell you which March we think is the closest match when we get to it, but do let me know in the comments which March you think is the closest match. So this is March 1959. There's the above average heights extending from the Atlantic into southern parts of Europe, with the below average heights up to the north. That feeds in this westerly flow. So let's compare back. That's 2019, and that is March 1959. The next March is March 1882. So again, we see that we have the above average heights from the Azores extending into many southern parts of Europe. Below average heights out to the northwest, and we're bringing in again that westerly flow in between. Again, let's go back to March 2019. There it is, and compare to March 1882. Fairly decent match, I think. Not perfect. I say you never get a like for like, but it's not bad. The next March is going to be 1913, and I've zoomed in with this one, so let's do that very quickly. There we go, and that's how March 1913 is looking Rather more of an unsettled march, that one. Below average heights, much deeper, and out to our west and northwest. We do have the above average heights from the Atlantic and into southern parts of Europe as well. So comparing back to March 2019, that's it. And then that's how March 1913 is looking. March 1920 is the next one that we found that we think is a pretty decent match. So again, we've got the above average heights in the Atlantic and across many central parts of Europe. A little bit further north with the above average heights this time, below average heights out to the north and to the west of the country as well. Let's try and compare back to 2019. So that's March 2019 again. That's March 1920. The next March is 1921. This isn't a bad match, I don't think. So again, we've got the below average heights out to the north and west. We've got the above average heights in the Atlantic and extending into Europe as well. That's bringing in this flat westerly flow from off the Atlantic. Comparing back to 2019, there we go, there's March 2019, going forwards to 1921. You see, that's a reasonable match. It's not perfect, again, you never get like for like, but I don't think it's too bad. They have a long gap through to 1967, that's how March 1967 is shaping up, with below average heights again to the north, above average heights from the Atlantic into Europe. There's that westerly flow coming in from off the Atlantic. Again, do please let me know which year you think is the closest match. So again, going back to March 2019, there it is, going forwards to March 1967. Not a bad match. That's March 1968. So with this one, the below average heights are a little bit more towards our northeast, perhaps. The above average heights slightly more centered into the Atlantic. So I'm not overly sure about 1968, but we think it's fairly close. There are similarities with March 1968 to March 2019. We think there are some similarities there. The next March is 1978. This one, again, with the below average heights, more centred towards the UK, really, but also very active in the North Atlantic. The above average heights are there in the Azores area of the Atlantic, and we've got the westerlies coming through a little bit further south, perhaps, with the westerlies. But again, there are similarities between March 2019 and March 1978. March 1989 next. This is a fairly decent one. Again, we've got the below average heights out to the northwest. We've got the above average heights in the Atlantic and into southern parts of Europe, and we bring those westerlies through rather like that. That's March 1989, and I don't think that's a bad match at all. Again, not like for like, but it's not a bad match for March 2019. Next March is 1989, a little bit stronger with the area of high pressure to our south in March 1990. Below average heights up to the north. It's a very westerly signal for March 1990, but the jet stream is pushed that much further north because the high pressure is centred over northern parts of France and into Germany. Had the last 2 weeks of March 2019 panned out like they did through the whole month, then we probably would have come away with a very similar anomaly to that. Again, that's March 2019 just there. That's March 1990 just there. March 1992 comes up next with below average heights up to our north, above average heights in the Atlantic and extending into the UK. Again, quite a westerly March in 1992. This is how March 2019 compares to 1992. And then finally, the last year, and this is one we think is the closest match, it's March 1994. Out of all of those marches that we think have similarities, this is the one that we think is the closest pattern match to March 2019. It has the below average height strongly up to the north from sort of Newfoundland and going into Greenland, Iceland, and Scandinavia. It has that area of high pressure bridging from the Azores into central and southern parts of Europe. Obviously, it's a westerly favoured March with strong westerly flow. Let's compare back to 2019. So that's the 500 millibar height anomaly for March 2019. That's how March 1994 looks. I think there are definite similarities. That we think is the closest match. But do let us know in the comments which March you think is the close match. Do you agree when it's 1994, or do you think that actually it's most likely to be? Do you think that it's most likely to be another March? Let me know what you think in the comments. Right, we'll run through some of those summers. I'm going to start off with summer of 1859. So this is how the summer of 1859 looks. Rather unsettled summer. Below average heights coming through the UK, above average heights in the Atlantic. So you can envisage it's quite an unsettled summer. Probably not particularly cold, though. Winds are likely to be coming up from the southwest. 1882 is the next summer. This looks pretty grim. It has below average heights as a trough in the 500 millibar flow over the UK and a blocking signal up to the north. So not only will that one be unsettled, it would also be quite cold as well, bringing winds in from a northerly direction. The next March was 1913, so this is how the summer of 1913 is looking. This one has above average heights away to the northwest, below average heights are to the south and southeast. Quite an easterly summer, this one. And reasonably dry. The Atlantic is blocked off, so it's not a particularly unsettled summer, just one of those sort of nondescript type summers. 1920 was the next summer. This one very grim. Look at that, above average heights. Below average heights, I should say, is a trough in the 500 millibar flow anchored over top of the country. So that's a very, very grim summer in 1920 indeed. 1921 isn't too bad, actually. It has above average heights out to our west, below average heights are up to the north. I think it has quite a hot July in 1921. That's not a bad summer. Following on from that March pattern match. Then we have that long run from 1921 to 1967, the summer of love in 1967. Isn't a bad summer really for a 1960s summers anyway. It's one of the better ones, though that's not saying too much. It has below average heights up to the north and above average heights to our south. Quite a westerly type summer, so it's relatively changeable, but there are some warm days in there too. The summer of love in 1967, not all that bad really. And then we've got 1968, which also doesn't look too bad as summer, although I think there's quite a lot of thunder in the summer of 1968. Very unstable summer, favouring easterly winds. And as I say, I think there are some pretty big thunderstorms in the summer of 1968. It's not remembered as a particularly warm summer either. 1978 is rather grim. This one has above average heights out to our north and to our northwest, below average heights to our south and southeast. This one is an unsettled and cool summer, very cool summer. What a change from the summer 2 years previous in 1976. The daddy of summers was only 2 years before 1978, but by the time we got to 1978 it was all changed. Cool and wet summer. That one. 1989 is a good summer, and it is showing up quite a lot in this year's analogues as well, this year's summer analogues. So this one with an area of high pressure centred almost over the top of the UK, low pressure out towards Greenland, Iceland. It's a pretty hot summer, especially hot in July of 1989. And then 1990 is a good summer as well, although you wouldn't know it from the reanalysis. It looks like it's an unsettled summer, but this high pressure up here towards Scandinavia gives the game away, because although the summer of 1990 starts cool and unsettled in June, it rapidly turns warmer and it goes into a very, very hot summer, certainly a very hot spell in the second half of July, and peaking in early August of 1990. 1992 is our next summer, and this one very unsettled with below average heights out to the west of the country, above average heights across Central Europe. It's a classic front-loaded summer. This has a really good May and June combination, both months dry and quite hot, but by the time you get to July there's a deterioration leading to a very wet and miserable August in 1992. And then finally we got the summer of 1994. Remember, we think March 1994 is the closest pattern match that we can find back to 1850 for March 2019. This one, with the below average heights out to the northwest, the above average heights to our south. It's a very warm summer. It has a hot July, very hot July, with a CET of above 18 degrees Celsius, but also very unstable in the summer of 1994 with a lot of thunder, and it does deteriorate quite markedly in August of 1994. Putting all of those pattern match marches together, this is how all Junes combined are looking. Unsettled signal for June with below average heights out to the north and to the south of the country, so you can envisage June is on average quite unsettled there. July looks a little bit better. It raises the heights a little bit close to us, so I mean it probably could go either way really, but it's a slightly better signal for at least a greater chance of some warmer and drier weather in July. But then August goes really grim. Look at that real trough of below average heights centred over the UK, much of Western Europe. The only saving grace is high pressure up towards Western Russia, which would try and feed in hot easterly winds, but overall that looks like a very, very grim signal for all of those August combined following those March pattern matches. And the summers themselves do look quite poor actually. Looks like an unsettled batch of analogues based on those March pattern matches. You expect quite a lot of unsettled, wet and relatively cool weather through these summers. Finally, just a reminder of the analogue that we think is the closest match, which is 1994. So again, there's the below average heights up to the north, there's the above average heights down to our south, feeding in those westerly winds. Comparing March 1994 to March 2019, we think that's the closest match. So just to finish, with the summer of 1994 reanalyzed, this is how it looks. It has above average heights in June to our south, below average heights are up to the north. It favours pulling up quite hot air from the south. It's a very warm June in 1994, but also quite thundery. July, though, is a hot month, and the reason July 1994 is a hot month is that it has high pressure over Scandinavia, and then it has low pressure in the middle of the Atlantic, and we bring up those hot southerly winds. So it's a hot summer, but it's also it's a hot July, I should say, but it's also very unstable with a lot of thunder breaking out. And then we have August 1994, which is a little bit more unsettled. As I say, there is a deterioration in the summer of 1994. So it starts to turn a little bit more unsettled there in August 1994. Overall, again, that's the reanalysis for the summer of 1994 with the above average heights to the south, but below average heights up to the north. And we pull up those hot southerly winds, but also very unstable with a lot of thunder. Right, so we've talked for pretty much half an hour, just over half an hour. Hope you found the 7th Summer Analogues 2019 Analogues update interesting and informative. A little bit different for this one, so let us know what you think in the comments. Again, let us know what you think about those March pattern matches. Which March do you think is the closest match to March 2019? Do let us know. Next week, I think we'll probably be starting April data, so probably starting April CET and precipitation data. So we'll see what April is signalling for you next week in next week's 8th Summer 2019 update. Big thank you to Richard Traut for all of the outside of the box presentation and suggestions in the first half of the video. Big thank you to our analogues guru James Ackrill for getting all of the analogues together for us. This video will be placed on the Summer 2019 updates and forecast page later on today. There'll be a written summary going over everything that we discuss in video, so you can have a read of that and watch a video on demand whenever you want. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.